Hi, my name is Manik, and I just joined as a PGY-1 psychiatry intern here at Penn State, which is in Hershey. And I just recently matched this year, right? Starting with the USMLE Match. What I'm going to be presenting here mainly is interviewing because that's my field of expertise because I have studied interviewing. I know like the verbal skills that comes with it. So let's jump on to interviewing. All right. What matters most? There was a survey that they conducted recently and asked program directors, what do you care most about when you are ranking applicants, right? And the single answer like that came out was this thing called the fit. And what the fit actually means is how well do you get along with the program? Because that is what they care about, right? Like you're going to be spending 3 to 4 years of your life, or like in cases of surgery, it could be 5 years, neurosurgery could be 6, 7 years. You're going to be spending so much amount of your time with that program. The fit, like, how, like if you're formal or if you're an informal person, if you're interested in sports, if you're not interested in sports, right? And if the program is interested in sports, a lot of these things matter to these programs because they want to live with a person they can live with, right? They don't want to live with a person they can't. Like, let's say a program is very much into extracurricular activities, right? And you are this person who is all about academics. What's going to happen is, even though you might have the best scores in USMLE and you are talking all about academics during your interview, you're not going to get ranked really high for that program because the program is going to be like, this person is going to be unhappy like here because we are not all about academics. We are much more about extracurriculars, and this person just doesn't get it. So they're not going to rank you that well because they know that you are going to be unhappy, and so are they, right? So what every program truly cares about in the end is not your scores, right? They are just like a screening criteria. What they care about is the fit, which is how well do you fit with the program. And there's a lot of criteria that come with it, and we will talk about like on how to become the best fit for every single program. But yeah, like it's also up to you. Do you want uh to calibrate to a certain program's fit? It's totally up to you. If you have too many choices, you might not want to do that, right? Like, why do you want to go to a program that doesn't fit who you are as a person? I definitely get that, but some people don't have that choice, right? In which case there is something called calibration where you can calibrate to whatever the program you can like offers, and make show them that you can actually get along with them. So that we'll talk about that later. So why interviewing matters? So this is statistics like from the what is that agency that conducts all the interviews?
NRMP.
Sorry, yeah, I always confuse NBME and NRMP. I've been like, yeah, I've been distant with this process for a long time, but yeah. So top 10 factors program directors use in selecting applicants to interview and in ranking. So you can see like you're in like to get you to the interview, right? To get you that interview day, your scores matter. Definitely your step 1 score matters, your LOR matters, your USMLE step 2 CK scores matter. All of these things that we talk about like in the whole USMLE process, it matters. But when it comes to ranking, the number 1 skill that will matter is your interpersonal skill. The number 2 skill will matter, that will matter, is interactions with the faculty. Third would be interactions with house staff, and then would be feedback from residents. And then you can see like the scores are actually the bottom part of the game once you go to the interview day. So when you are at the interview day, no matter what your score is, you are at a level playing field with everyone else, right? And everybody has an equal chance. And what predicts that whether you'll match into that certain program is how did your interview day go, right? So USMLE scores versus interviews, I'm clarifying this again because a lot of people are just like, how do I score this much? Like I have 70% in my 12th. Will I get into USMLE? Like, will I get into the match process or not? Right. And that's what I want to tell all those people is USMLE scores can only get you the interview, not the residency spot. When they surveyed the program directors, like they told the NRMP, a poor interview day is the most common cause of applicants not matching, right? You not showing your interpersonal skills, you're not interacting with the faculty, right? So, and not interacting with the house staff or whatnot, right? So USMLE scores are not an end in itself. They only ignite the possibility of you matching, right? So USMLE scores should be your mean goals. to the end goal, which is a great interview. There are people who have average scores, they get one interview, they match. There are so many of them. And then there are people who have great scores. And I know a certain person in psychiatry, like he had great scores, applied, like got 15 interviews from the likes of even Mayo, could not match, right? Because he just couldn't open up in front of programs. He was all about academics. He didn't like try to connect with them on a personal level. So remember, interviews will matter far more than your scores in the whole matching process, right? And when we are thinking about interviewing, you have like not much time when you're interviewing with the program. For example, let's say you have these 2 to 3 hours, like in cases of IM, when you're interviewing with an IM program, and per person, let's say with the PD, with the advanced, with the associate PD, with the professors, you'll have like just a chunk of 20 minutes, 20 minutes, and 20 minutes per person, right? And that's not a lot of time. So you have just this little amount of time where you need to make sure that you connect with them, you knock their socks off, and you don't have time to waste there. You can't just keep on blabbering stuff that doesn't make sense. You cannot just not have a goal, certain goal in mind, right? That's not how you should approach interviewing, because it's a very time limited process where you have to make a very big impact, right? And that's why like that, you'll see this picture. You need to make sure you knock their socks off and impress them versus other candidates who would not do the same thing, right? So how are the interviews like? So format of the interview. So generally interviews right now, because of the COVID and during, after post-COVID, interviews have been virtual along this time and will tend to be virtual because it saves the program a lot of the money, and it saves you a lot of the money, so everyone is happy. There are talks of hybrid interviewing where some people can come for the virtual interview and some people can interview in person, and some programs will be doing it. But from what I know, majority of the programs are gonna go with the virtual system because yeah, it is just far more economical for them, and as well as time saving in a lot of ways. So format of the interview, you'll have like these 2 days. The first one is the pre-interview social, and then is the interview day. So what is the pre-interview social, might you ask? So pre-interview social is this evening. Like for me, it was the evening before the interview because I interviewed in India, right? And what we did was we got to chat with the residents, like on Zoom, like you and I are doing right now. And but like, yeah, of course, we weren't just in the chat, we were like actually chatting, right? So you get to talk with the residents, ask them informal questions, right? Like, for example, what do you like about the program? What do you not like about the program? What is that one thing that you want to improve in this certain program? And you can ask them, okay, what about the area? So you can try to connect with them during the pre-interview social, ask them any informal questions that you cannot actually ask PDs, associate PDs, or professors. It is a great time to connect because remember, when they are ranking you, feedback from residents also matters, right? And if you can impress a certain resident, right? Like let's say they have these certain hobbies and you have the same hobbies. For me, that was mindfulness and meditation. So I'm very much into that. And I remember like I interviewed at Rutgers and one of the residents was very much into mindfulness, and I was sure to bring that up. And he actually told me by the end of the day, like I emailed him, like give him an LOI and just asked, like, said thank you for interviewing me, and send him like LOI, like if possible, do try to rank me if you like me, right? And he was like, if you want in, I can definitely ask the PD from my side. I loved you, and something like that, right? So that was all because I tried to connect with him on the pre-interview socials. You can definitely miss pre-interview socials and might not impact your performance in the ranking, might not, but it certainly can have a positive impact, right? So just know that, like, try to attend all of them, try to talk with the residents, because the more you talk with every certain resident, the more the program will tend to remember you and make a good impression. Just don't go into the pre-interview social with your pajamas, or like just have a casual shirt is what I would say. Like you don't need to be dressed up, even though I was in my first 2 interview socials, because the residents themselves have like come from their own duties and they're just like taking the time out to spend with you, and they won't be in formals. Specifically, they'll be in their casual, so you can have casual clothes just like what I'm wearing. So this is a casual shirt, you can wear this. If you're a girl, you can just like have a casual top, and that totally works. Try not to make it formal because they themselves won't be formal. So it'll be this disconnect, discalibrated equation where you're trying to act formal and they are trying to act informal. which doesn't look good upon you. Now let's talk about the format of the interview, and we are moving from the pre-interview social that we talked about before, right? So the interview day. The interview day can range from 4 to 6 hours long. Keep in mind, this is just like an average range. It can even go from 2 hours to 8 hours. I've had interviews which are 8 hours long. So 1/3 of a day. That does happen in psych. So definitely, like in IM, the interviews tend to be shorter than psych. So it will differ for people, but in general, it should be 4 to 6 hours long, not but it doesn't go off the range that much. You will definitely interview with at least 3 people, which I mentioned here. The PD, which is the program director who takes care of the program, and like he's responsible for structuring your rotations. He's responsible for looking into your evaluations, to giving you feedback, and PD is who directs your program. Just clarifying that up. Associate PD or faculty. So associate PD is like an assistant PD who helps the PD with directing the whole program. It can also be a faculty member, if not associate PD, and if that person's busy. The third person you will definitely interview with is the chief resident, who is so what a chief resident is: a resident who is in their final year of residency and is taking part in the administrative like process of the whole program. He's helping the PD and the associate PD with structuring your rotations, making sure all the residents get their feedback across to the faculty and the PD, and they kind of act as a medium between the residents and the PD to like smoothen the administrative workflow. The format of the interview will be sent to you. How long will it be? And how long, let's say if it's 30 minutes for the PD, they will send it to you. Okay, you're going to interview with the PD for 30 minutes, and then it's going to be this certain person, and it's going to be this certain person. And it will be given to you within a week of you getting your interview, which will happen through the NRMP website. Yeah, not the NRMP was okay. Yeah. So each interview would be 15 to 30 minutes on an average. And what happens during the interview is, once they're done with interviewing you, they are going to make what is called as the initial ROL, which is called the rank order list, right? The full form of that is rank order list. And so there is also a final ROL, which I'll talk about. So initial ROL is, once they interview you, once the interview is over with a certain person, they're going to take a list where they're going to evaluate you on certain characteristics, give you a score, right, on certain criteria. So they will first make their own individual evaluation, which will go then, like after about during the next 2 to 3 months, they will talk with the groups, like the PD will talk with the associate PD and the chief resident, and they will come up with something called as the final ROL, where they'll get into this room table where they'll talk about, okay, why I don't like this person versus why I like this person. And they will make a final ROL, rank order list, where they rank you on a scale, let's say from 1 to whatever, like how many candidates they have interviewed. So interview evaluation, initial ROL. So numeric score will be assigned to you by each interviewer on how well did you perform in the interview. For example, they'll ask you certain questions. How well did you respond to them? And did they feel you were the right fit for that certain individual, right? Per the program. Then, and what they rank you basically on is the ACGME score competencies. So ACGME has these core competencies for residents. So what you would have heard about is ACGME accredited residency. So ACGME is Accreditation Council of Graduate Medical Education, which kind of licenses certain residency programs, whether if they are good enough to train residents, right? So ACGME is the standard criteria in America for residencies to stick to, and they have these core competencies that every resident should perform well on. The first one is patient care, which is how well you can take care of patients, how well you are in that regard. You can even research it online if you want to, because I don't have time to get into that this discussion, because it's a very big discussion. So patient care, for example, your compassion, empathy during the interview, could you display those qualities? Communication, academic strength, teamwork, diversity, right? That's patient care. Medical knowledge, like how proficient you are. Not going to be asked many knowledge-based questions in your interview. They're not going to ask you, okay, tell me how diabetes mellitus happens. What's the pathogenesis? They're not going to do that. And the reason is because if you made it to the interview day, you probably are good enough academically. So they're not going to do that specifically, but they are going to look for work ethic and motivation, as well as flexibility. For example, are you a lifelong learner? So that's medical knowledge, practice-based learning and improvement, which is, do you believe that you can improve, and how will you improve as a resident or like as a medical practitioner? Interpersonal and communication skills are the most important as like a core competency that we residents are also evaluated on. Professionalism, as if do you show up on time? Are you dressed well, right? Do you have a certain style of speaking, which is professionalistic, not just like informal, right? And systems risk practices, which you can also search up online. So in the initial rank order list, they are going to assign you a number, and like on based of all these core competencies, and they're going to form an overall rating for like that certain interview with a certain interviewer, right? And separate ratings based on different competencies, which I've already talked about. And then what happens is, so let's say I interviewed you, and then Nikhila interviewed you. I will give you a certain number on all of these core competencies and have my final number. And then Nikhila will do the same based on her interviewer. And then we'll start talking. We'll be like, Nikhila, let's start talking about ranking a certain applicant. So we'll make what is called as the final ROL. So final ROL is initial ROL plus any change made to it. For example, the way I can explain this is we interviewed somebody called as Yash, right? So we interviewed somebody called Yash, and I placed him on like the second best person I interviewed. She placed it on the fourth, right? And we will start getting in discussion like why I think he is like in the second best, and she thinks he is the third best or the fourth best, right? And then we might come up on an average. We'll rank this person maybe on the third, right? That's how we want to do it. There could be also other factors. For example, if some resident did not like this person, we might not end up ranking that person at all, because if you are rude to a certain resident, well, that's not gonna like that means you're not gonna be good fit, right? So you won't be ranked, right? Any staff, if they ever felt that you were not there, like, or you were in professional, or you did not show any of these core competencies really well, can decrease you on that ranking scale. So example, that Yash person we were talking about, if he was on the third, right, third best person we interviewed, he could go to the 10th place if some staff did not like him. Also, let's say if you know a certain resident, you have worked with them, and I just don't mean just know them by email. I mean, like if you've worked with them and they know that you're good to work with, let's say in terms of either research or in terms of patient care, they can put in like a good word with the PD for you. And that can, let's say you were on the third best place, you could go to the first because like one of the residents really liked you. And like PDs do care about that, because remember, a residency is much more like a home. And that home is in terms of like what comes out of that home is you delivering your you delivering your medical services, right? And if the home doesn't work well, if people have problems, right, it won't like translate into a good result, right? And PDs really care about that, right? So if certain resident doesn't like you, that's going to be bad for you. If they really like you, that's going to be amazing for you. Completion of a successful rotation at the institution is also really important. For example, if you were to go to Emory and do a certain rotation in FM, right, you would get to meet a lot of candidates there, as well as like the whole residency team, the PD, the associate PD. You will also meet the residents. And when you are like on the interview day, they will remember you. And because of that, yeah.
Sorry, just to chime in there. Yeah, completing a rotation and when you interact with the faculty in the department, that actually makes a lot of difference. Because for example, last season, this season, I mean, the residents that were starting this July, when we were ranking them, our program director and our attendings and all the residents that were coming to didactics on that day, so we had like a big wall with all the candidates that interviewed at Emory, with literally their pictures on the wall, and then there was a PowerPoint presentation of all the candidates that were interviewed in that season, which says, hey, this person's first name is so and so, last name is so and so, is from so and so school, went to this medical school. Also, they talked about whether that student had like any spouse that was applying to any other program within the MRE. So all of those, and then they were showing the final score of, all the factors that they considered during the interview. Oh, he scored like 25 points, and so he's at number one. And say this person scored like 12 points, so he's at like number 50. And finally on the wall, at the end, so as we are going through each and every single candidate, the residents, the attendings, they were able to raise hands and chime in, give more information, and like, oh, why is this person on the 20th position? Probably, I don't think he was nice enough, so maybe he should be like 80 or so. And then there were even people that were like in 80s and 90s that were brought to like the first 10 because they remembered them working with them in the department, and they were like, oh, why is she so low? And they were like, oh, she didn't answer so well on the interview. And they were like, oh no, she's like a very good candidate, she needs to be in the top 10 people and she should be ranked to match. What rank to match means, say a program has like 10 positions, like and if you're ranked in the first 10 people, then if you rank that program first, then you're definite to match there. So rank to match means like ranking in the X number of ranks, which is equal to the X number of positions in the program. So every single thing that you do, the way you talk, and even when you're in the pre-interview dinners, like, I mean, now it's online, even in the online interviews, they still observe, because I've remembered, residents saying, hey, this student just dropped out of the pre-interview, saying that she's busy with a dog or something, and then they moved her down. Like, so that means she's not much interested in our program. So there's no point in ranking that student higher, because she probably is not interested and she won't rank us anyways. So we would rather give that to somebody else who is, more interested in, in that program. So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. That is like, because I've not been through this ranking process of like, going through the applicants myself, because I'm just so new. I'm a PGY-1 and she's a PGY-2. So she's been through that. And that is like what I was exactly talking about. So it is not as simple as a lot of people think it is. Like, it's not just like they're going to assign you a number and that's over. No, there's a lot of, it's a very complex process, and the whole residency gets involved in it. And what you need to understand is like, and that I did not understand before, is how the US system works is it's very much like a family, and you need to make sure that every part of that family, or that machine is working well. And if some part doesn't like the other part, well, it's going to be a huge problem. It's going to like make everybody unhappy, right? So everybody's feedback matters, especially if you've done a successful, this is called as like an audition rotation, right? So you do an audition rotation, and a lot of US medical students, even like especially from DO schools, is what I've seen. They go to other MD schools and do what is called as an audition rotation, and they do it specifically where they want to match in that certain departments where they want to match, right? And you have this 1 month of like experience with them where you get to meet everyone. And when you do that, like, you have a 1 month time period to show your personality, 1 month time period to show your commitment, 1 month time period to show who you really are, versus other candidates who just have 20 minutes. So it makes a huge impact if you can get an audition rotation at places such as Mayo, or like places which are like big enough. And if you want to match into those places, right? So audition rotations can actually make a big difference. Then referral from a trusted person. For example, if you have worked with a really famous attending who everyone knows in the field, right? Like, they're well published, everyone talks about them. And if you worked with them and they write you the LOR and then they call a certain program for you, like, I know this person is really good, take it from me, like, this person will be an incredible resident. That will very much impact where you're ranked, because PDs do like that, right? Like, because it's coming from a trusted source, right? Then creating a diverse cohort. So this is also something that you should keep in mind, that ACGME has these requirements for certain programs, that you should maintain diversity. And if you maintain diversity, you stand good by a program. So sometimes like the place where you're from, let's say India, Iran, that can make a difference, because they're like, okay, we have just too many people from this country, we need to give this other countries people also chance, right? We should give them a chance. So that can impact it. So you should know that. So all of these changes do come into play in the final ROL. So let's say if they're going to rank 50 applicants, right? The initial ROL plus changes would lead to that final ROL. And like this match season that you see, this is when the changes are being made, right? So they're interviewing people, and at the same time, like, they are making changes, right? And I'm going to see that this year. So I've never seen that. I will get you a better perspective next year once I've been through this process. So what are the reasons to not rank an applicant? The number one reason, like, so when the NRMP, I think they did a survey and they asked program directors, why would you not rank a certain applicant? The answer is, number one is the poor interview day. For example, if you do something bad, if you were informal to people, if you were rude to people, they would not rank you. Simple as that, because they have 50 other people who would want the same position and would be nice enough to them, and they would definitely give it to them, right? Second would be the other like reason it could be a poor interview day is if you did not speak anything, if you did not open up, if you did not try to even connect with them, right? There is so many other people who would do that, so they would rather pick them over somebody who doesn't do that, right? Who was not warm enough, who was not uh, empathetic enough, did not show compassion, might not be ranked, right? Then is bad fit, right? If they feel, for example, like I've heard this from a lot of people, is let's say it's a community program and you're interviewing for a community program, and you're all about academics. You're like, I want to publish research. You're all about scholarship activity, and this is a community program which cannot offer it, right? That will worry them, because what that means is if they cannot provide you with enough scholarship activities as well as academic opportunities, you are not going to be happy. And if you're not going to be happy, you're going to make them unhappy, and it's going to be like the whole family would again fall apart because you are not happy. So they don't want that, right? Like fit, I showed you, like what matters most is fit, right? If you're not a good fit, for example, if you're like interviewing with a community program, please don't talk much about research, rather talk about patient care and certain instances when you deliver patient care. And if you're interviewing with a university program, it is a good idea, like as a rule of thumb, to bring up research and bring up academic opportunities. But like, remember, you should not be all about a certain side. It's not like go 100% for patient care or go 100% for research. It's just like there is this middle sweet ground which you need to like calibrate based upon like a certain program. Like, are they community based? Are they community based, university affiliated? Are they university based, right? If it's university based, I would like 20% of the interview I could talk about my research, right? But if it's a community based, I would not talk about research at all, because I know it's just like a lot of them just cannot help me with it, and it's just like make them more intimidated with me, right? Also, the last thing is professionalism concerns. For example, if you show up late, or let's say on the interview day you just came like in with your pajamas, or on the interview day you were not even like giving attention uh, to the PD or the associate PD or anyone else, or if you're being rude, so that's a professionalism issue. And it is an ACGME core competencies. All of this comes to the ACGME core competency if you think about it. So there's levels of interviewing. So I feel like most of people fall in the range of beginner to intermediate. So a beginner person, like who, like most of us have not been trained in interviewing. I specifically was not when I started like the whole process, because a lot of Indian exams do not really focus upon the skill or interpersonal communication skills. What they do focus on is medical knowledge, which I get. But the whole process, like this whole USMLE process, there is a big focus on interpersonal and communication skills. If you would have heard the term networking, what is networking? Your ability to connect with people, your ability to deliver value to them, and then they help you back, right? It's this give and take, but you do not expect the take, right? It's just you trying to give, and you're trying to help people, and you're trying to be nice to them, trying to make connections, which gets you to a certain position. And interviewing is in a way like the next version of that networking, where you are like, if you're good enough with your interpersonal communication skills, uh, you can actually influence a lot of the ranking process if you know what you are talking about. So a beginner knows a few things and hopes they won't mess up, right? They just show up on the interview day, try to answer a few questions, try to be nice, that's it. Intermediate, they know their answers well, they're prepared beforehand for a certain number of questions that they're going to be asked about. For example, why psychiatry, why our program, so they have structured answers to them. But the problem with them is they deliver a nice Q&A session, right? It's just like, I'll ask you a question and you'll give me an answer. I'll ask you a question and you'll give me an answer. It is not a conversation, which is the biggest issue. And there is no there's no connection, is what I'm going to talk about, right? Advanced people, they make the interview invisible. What I mean by invisible is it is very much conversational rather than Q&A, because we humans, we don't tend to remember logic as much as we tend to remember emotions, right? How a certain person made us feel, right? Did we have a certain connection with them? If you go back to your past, right, your best friends or what, like whoever it is, you tend to remember people who made you feel a certain thing rather than people just who talked logic to you or whatnot, right? So yes, logic is important, but if you can add this emotional impact to whatever you're delivering, if you're passionate during the interview, that will show up, right? And it should not just be a Q&A session where they're asking you a question and you're just delivering an answer. You can always interject another question in that interview. During the Q&A session, you can interject a question, you can ask them a question, and it becomes conversational, right? And you could try to be funny, you could try to be like, emotionally impacting. It's all up to you. So inspire the interviewer, right, with your answers, like how, with like your passion of that certain specialty, and try to create a connection. That's what advanced interviewing is all about.